I feel like myself again. Hello everyone, Musaki from the Chaldea Gurus here, and it's time for another FGO video. I know, crazy, isn't it? I've been getting a lot of questions over on Discord, over on discord.gg/Chaldea Gurus, about, hey Musaki, who do you think are the most worth it service to roll for Fate Grand Order? If you were to ask me that question right now, I would say don't spend any money on Fate Grand Order, play another game. But if you're so deep down the rabbit hole there's no hope for escape, I can offer you a couple options to help you out. Disclaimer, this video is only for servants that are going to be worth your time and worth the Saint course to invest rolling. If you don't like my list, definitely comment down below. I'm going to love having a conversation with you. So let's not waste any more time. Let's just jump into it with number 5. Tezcatlipoca. 5-star assassin. Now Tezcatlipoca is coming up very quickly, actually coming in the month of January, and he's a very strong assassin, albeit one of the strongest assassins available in the game, especially for farming. Normally assassins unfortunately come with a little bit of a demerit that they do not tell you about in game, by the way, but there's a reason why they have a little bit low damage, and it takes a lot for them to do more damage, just like Burst Asana. They've done a lot to make him a very strong assassin, and they've done the same here. He does have a charisma that not only increases the attacks by 10 to 20%, but also gives people with guts an additional 10 to 20%. So you're dealing with 40% if someone has guts. So what's the next skill do? It charges his own Noble Phantasm, charges everyone else's Noble Phantasm, gives everyone invincibility for 2 attacks for 3 turns, and apparently a demerit which actually blocks invincibility buff 1 time for 3 turns. Interesting. So yeah, a little bit of a demerit there, but it is a 30 to 50% battery while giving everyone else an additional 20 to 30%. That is really strong and very good, up there with Castor Artoria. That's insane. If not Castor Artoria, definitely Morgan and Queen Skya. Let's move on. Third skill is, oh, there it is, grants self gut status for 1 time, increases his own arts performance for 3 turns, increases his own damage against divinity, increases his own damage against super large, and grants the sunlight battlefield nullification buff. So now, no, if it's a sunlight battlefield, he'll literally turns it off. There is no sunlight battlefield. And he does an additional damage to divinity and super large, which helps with those niche specs, gives himself increased arch damage, which is good for his Noble Phantasm, and gives himself guts, which means the first skill is going to give him 40% attack. It is very nice and very good. Right there, he has a lot of passives, 5 passives here, with a unique passive all of his own. Increases the value of master skills by 10% while self is on field. That's wild. So this is the first servant that's actually interacting with your master skills. With him on the field, your master skills now do more. That is really good. But let's go ahead and go down to his pen skills. Obviously, aside from the increased attack and the starting MP gauge, which you should always get, he has an anti-assassin attack damage attribute. Interesting. So he has extra damage against assassins. Nice little niche there. And finally, we have the Noble Phantasm, which is an arch AoE Noble Phantasm. It ignores invisibility for 1 turn, which activates first, and deals damage to all enemies while charging party's MP by 10%, with an overcharge effect that increases MP damage for 3 turns that activates first. He does a lot of damage. Everything in here gives him a lot of damage. It increases his MP damage right here. He has the passive Buster and Arch damage right here. He has the 3rd skill buff against increased divinity and super large enemies, and increased arch performance here, which adds on, and then also a regular just attack bonus. So with all these attack ups, he does so much damage that is absurd, which is very good for assassins, because for the longest time, Okita Alter is joking to be the assassin AoE farmer. But now you have Tez here doing just the same job, if not better. It is very good that we finally have a very good AoE assassin in this game. And he is the number 5 spot for this list. Now let's go ahead and go to number 4, Usagi Kenshin, 5-star ruler. Yes, Kenshin, aka 5-star Nagao Kagatora, is very good. a ruler type that does a lot of good damage is absurd. Now, rulers are generally whatever you want them to be. They can sometimes be defensive, sometimes they can be tricky, sometimes they can be offensive. We're dealing with an offensive monster here with a quick double arch, double buster deck. Let's go ahead and go into the skills and break them down. First skill is going to be increasing your own crit damage and crit absorption and grants evasion for 2 attacks or 3 turns. Very good considering they need their pretty quick focus. This is important for them. Their crits hit harder and they have a chance to crit more often. Second skill increases own arch performance and charges their own MP 30 to 50% and gains crit stars every turn for 3 turns. That's 5 to 15 crit stars there. That's going to be very good and very easy for them to rack up here, especially with the absorption. They're going to go all to them. 30 to 50% MP means they use an MP more often, and they have an arch buff, which is going to make their attacks hit even harder. Third skill, this overcharges one ally's double phantasm by 2 stages for 1 time or 3 turns. Also increases their attack and their MP generation. The fact that it is targetable is very good. 10 to 20% attack is nice, so they're going to hit harder. Their noble phantasm also is going to do even more damage because it's going to move it up the scale. So theoretically, you can just put this on herself. Now she has an attack buff, she has an MP generation buff, she has an arch buff, she has crit stars. She's going to be hitting very hard. For her third skill, she actually does more damage to alter egos, so this is be pretty useful in some niche fights. Not bad to have, but honestly still just do the mana loading. This is what you need to do. And finally, we have the Noble Phantasm, which is a single target. So not only does it remove enemy buffs before turn, it deals damage to one enemy and deals even more damage if they're the man attribute. How do you figure out they're the man attribute? Well, the game doesn't tell you, so you just have to figure out by going online. But you also can increase arc performance for 1 turn. So it does a lot of damage. It is a boss slaying machine. She is really good. Her animations are really good. And everything is really solid. I would say that she is worth it here because for Ruler, they are very easy to level up. If you look at this, all you really need is monuments. And before, this was kind of hard to do. And even with the skills, you just need gems until you get to level 7. Before, this was hard, but FGO has given a lot of things to you that you're able to get these gems and statues easier even outside of events. So with that being the case, leveling up rulers are really easy, and for such a low investment, you get a lot in return. She's a fan favorite servant. She was a free unit, and this is the now limited 5-star version. You will definitely enjoy having the servant under your employ. Let's go ahead and go to the third servant on this list, Medusa Saber, which is very nice to see. Welcome, Medusa. We've been waiting for you. This is going to be another single target unit, but it's very notable because she is a quick base unit. And again, once again, Medusa finally getting some 5-star love. The triple quick Archbuster deck means she's going to be very good in those arch teams. Definitely go ahead and pair her with both Scotties and you'll have yourself a good time. Now let's go ahead and go into the skills. First skill, she has a chance to stun an enemy or petrify, because you know, Medusa. And she can also increase the crit damage on all the green cards and gives herself an attack buff every time she attacks. She basically applies a curse to the opponent every time she uses a green card, which is great. That means your green cards, your normal attacks, are going to do more than they normally do. I really like that. And if you level the skill all the way up, the chance to stun an enemy is 100%. So really good on that. Let's go ahead and go to the next skill. Next skill is, of course, an MP battery. Are you noticing anything with all these servants, by the way? 30 to 50%, so she has a way to get 50% battery, which is very good. Why is this very good after midway through this video? Well, there are a lot of craft essences. Those are the little support cards that no one normally cares about that actually gives you 50% Noble Phantasm when you max limit break it. Max limit breaking is where you get multiple copies of one craft essence on one, completely filling it out. Once you do that, and you'll know because the stars will be filled up, you'll actually get more effects. So 50% plus 50% is 100%. So you put that craft essence on this unit, and more often than not, they will have their Noble Phantasm turn 1 if you leveled everything up. And that's why it's very important. I hope you learned that. I hope you learned something new, player, and definitely not people who played this game for 7+ years. Anyway, on top of that, it also increases the party's attacks, not just her attack, the entire party, and it increases crit damage specifically to demonic allies. So if you have demonic allies on your team, which if you don't know who are demonic, good luck, but they increase, and that is going to be very good for you. So I like the fact that this is something for the party, and the stats are pretty good, but it also gives herself something nice too. Let's move on to the third skill. Third skill is going to be granting self-invincibility for 3 attacks and 3 turns. Also gives herself debuff immunity for 3 times and 3 turns. It also increases her own crit attack chance resistance for 3 turns, which means people will not be able to crit you as much. This is very good, nice defensive style. And the fact that everything lasts for 3 turns means it can last for a long time. 3 attacks and 3 turns is kind of iffy in some cases, but I think it works here, especially because not every time will your unit be targeted. So this is a good skill, very defensive based skill. So if you feel like you're about to die, pop this and you're good. Nothing to say about the passives, they're pretty normal by all standards. The third skill is against berserker enemies, which is not for nothing. Saber doing more damage to berserkers can come up in some cases, but again, second pen skill will be the only skill you need to level up because it gives you 10% noble phantasm when you start. If you level that up, it's 20%, so definitely very much worth it. Let's go ahead and talk about the Noble Phantasm, which is a single target Noble Phantasm. It deals 150% extra damage, so it deals more damage to people with the man attribute, has a 40% chance, it's set to 40% chance to stun an enemy, and it also increases the attack of all allies with the earth attribute by 20% for 3 turns. For the overcharge, it increases the quick performance for a turn that activates first. So this is a lot of damage and a lot of things that just help you out and your party out, and it keeps going more and more. Again, it's gonna be a little tough to figure out which ones are art attribute, which ones are man attribute. It's nothing really specifically clear about that, but the fact that it deals so much damage, has a chance to petrify, and you can keep using the Noble Phantasm over and over and over, especially with both Scotties, who can give 50% Noble Phantasm each, you're in a very, very good spot. Medusa Saber is definitely worth it here. Is she stronger than Okita? I love me some Okita, and I think Okita is stronger in the neutral game, especially because she is very, very strongly made. Her foundation is very strong. But Medusa has a lot of moving parts to her, a lot of utility that I think is very important in a unit. So if you don't have Okita, Medusa Saber is very good, very strong. On top of that is Medusa. You recognize her right away. So if you're a Fate Stay Night fan, this is your chance to get Medusa, who happens to be another unit that I'm not going to spoil, but just this is Medusa. Throw Medusa. Give her some love. It's kind of nice. And let's go ahead and go to the next servant. Number 2 is Melusine Rider, 5-star Rider summer unit. This is Summer Melusine, and much like the normal Melusine, she is very, very strong. So of course, when you see the 5-star versions, you're gonna definitely want her. So let's go ahead and talk about it here. A quick double arch, double buster deck means she's going to be doing pretty good in the comps that you want her in. So let's go ahead and dive even further. The first skill, increase the performance of those blue cards. Make sure they hit harder for 3 turns. Also increases the crit damage that you do. Make sure your crits hit even harder. Increases the damage against enemies of the chaotic element for 3 turns, but also reduces the damage taken to your party for 3 turns. So good luck trying to figure out who's chaotic on first glance without going to the internet. But the fact that she increases her own damage is very nice, and also reducing the damage your allies take, which is very nice. Let's go ahead and move on to her second skill. The second skill, make sure she can crit harder by increasing her crit star absorption, and gives her crit stars every turn for 3 turns. This also gives her even more crit stars if she's by waterside or airspace battlefield. That means you gotta watch exactly where you are. It also gives you 20 crit stars on waterside or battlefield. So let's break this down. 50 crit stars, make sure everyone on your party can attack that turn at 100% crit rate, meaning they will not fail, generally. So what you're saying here is they get normally 5 to 10 crit stars every turn for 3 turns. But if you're by a waterside or airspace battlefield for 3 turns, you get an additional 10. So that's 20. And on top of that, if you're just on a waterside or airspace battlefield, you get an additional 20. So you get 40 crit stars off rip by putting this one skill if it's maxed out to 10, and you just so happen to be by a beach or in the air. And that is crazy. Now, what will make this even better is if you found a way to be able to place that buff upon yourself or on the field to make sure that, hey, you can proc these triggers. Again, not something that is told to you, but there are units that can do that, and if you know that, that'll be very helpful. The fact that this skill is so loaded is nice, and it has a relatively low cooldown of 5 turns, so only 2 turns of downtime if you somehow have to go that far. Third skill, very similar to her normal one. It charges her Noble Phantasm gauge from 50% to 80%. Also increases her MP damage, so her Noble Phantasm is going to hit even harder. And also grants herself invincibility for 2 attacks of 3 turns. So this is great because not only is it charging up your Noble Phantasm and doing MP, it also gives you invincibility. And because the MP damage lasts for 3 turns, you can potentially pop the invincibility early if you need to save yourself from a devastating attack, and do your Noble Phantasm a turn or 2 later at full power, which is very nice. Very much enjoy that. Now for the third skill for the Pen, it is anti-saber. She's going to do more damage to sabers so that it could be relevant in some cases, but again, just do the second skill. Go ahead and do the second skill, that'll be fine from there, especially because 10 to 20%, you add the 20% to her 80% here. That is 100% Noble Phantasm just by hitting 1 button. Let's go to the AoE Arch Noble Phantasm here, and it has a couple of things that activates first. It increases the crit damage by 30% for 3 turns to activate first. Crits don't necessarily affect Noble Phantasm, so this is for if they survive. It deals damage to all enemies, but deals extra damage if those enemies are with the Earth attribute. Again, good luck figuring that out. And then it increases own attack for 3 turns, which activates first based off your overcharge. What's overcharge? Overcharge is when you go over 100%. So let's say you charge a Noble Phantasm to 200%. And the only way you can do that is if a craft essence says you can, or if you have multiple copies of that unit. Then you get the stronger effect. Still, this is very good, increasing your attack on top of that, and your crit damage in case they survive that attack, dealing even more damage if their Earth attribute, which is something that you may not be able to find out but is there, on top of all the other benefits, increasing MP damage with the third skill, the crits in case they survive somehow, and normal arch performance here and crit damage here. So she's going to hit hard a lot, and because she's a ruler, she's definitely doing neutral damage. Everything, to everything, regardless of what class it is, you are in for a world of hurt. So that's going to be it for number 2. Let's go ahead and go to our final servant, the number 1 servant that I believe is worth it for the year of 2025 in NA. And that servant is Sodom's Beast, Draco. That's right, we have a Nero face as the number 1, and I'm pretty sure a couple of you are probably balding right now, but I don't care. I want to explain why I think she is the most worth it servant to roll for this year. Don't let her appearance fool you. She may be a child here, and I know most of you say, hey, yo, Musaki, I'm not into lollies. That's okay, just put her in the 3rd ascension and you'll be absolutely fine. Now, this is one of the few beast servants in the game. When I mean few, she's one of 2. That already puts her in a well sought off after class, and she does a lot as this class. Basically, if you are a beast, you deal more damage to all of the original 7 class of service, but you do take more from the extra classes, so you do the resistant damage. To explain more of the class disadvantage here, as you can see, does double damage to berserkers, 1.5 to the other 6 of the original 7 classes, 1 to all other classes, and does resistant damage to rulers, avengers, moon cancers, alter egos, foreigners, and pretenders. Meanwhile, on the flip, she takes double damage from those same classes while taking less damage from Saber, Archer, Lancer, Riders, Casters, Assassins, or Berserkers. You more often than not fight regular class service, and yes, as you go up in difficulty, yes, as you go further in the story, you will fight more of these extra classes, especially in the 3rd set of stories, Ordeal Calls. But everything else, she does amazingly, and we'll tell you why. But let's go ahead and go into the skills. This is one of the reasons why she's very powerful. She charges her own MP gauge every turn for 6 turns, increases her own crit damage for 6 times, and reduces her own damage taken for 6 times. That's not for nothing. 6 turns, only 7 turns for the cooldown, only 1 turn of downtime, not too bad, and getting 10% double phantasm for 6 turns. That says something there. Let's go and go to the second skill. Seals all enemy skills for 1 turn. No percentage, just does this. Inflicts burn for 3 turns to them as well, so that's the damage over time. And also has a chance to, you know, charge their MP by 1 as a demerit. I mean, whatever, right? But it also increases their own attack by 3 turns, 20 to 40%, which is nice. Also grants self holding Holy Grail status for 3 turns. What does that mean? Let's get into the third skill and find out. So it increases her own buff removal resistance by 100% for 1 time or 3 turns, meaning you are not removing buffs off her without some significant effort or luck. But if she has the Holy Grail status, brace yourself. She increases her own damage against dragon enemies and Roman enemies, and also gains stars every turn. Also gives herself debuff immunity for 1 turn, ignores defense for 3 turns, and increases own healing for 3 turns, and charges her own MP gauge for every turn for 3 turns. That is a lot. I'm going to tell you all the numbers here because the game won't tell you, so I will. 40% damage against dragons, 40% damage against Romans, and also gives herself 10 crit stars per turn. And also heals herself 20%. Increases the only healing by 20%, and also gives herself 20% double phantasm gauge every turn for 3 turns, on top of the 10% that she has in the first passively. That's a lot. 7 beast crowns indeed. For the third skill, she does more damage against caster enemies, if that matters. If you just hate casters, go do that. But again, as I've said throughout the entire video, second skill, that's all you need. Now, Noble Phantasm. This is a single target arch Noble Phantasm, and it deals extra damage to 7 knight servant enemies for the overcharge. If you are a knight of any type, if you are the original class, if you are any of these servants here, any of these servants right 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 here, and any of these enemies, you are cooked. That's exactly what you are. You are absolutely and positively cooked, which is majority of the enemies that you're gonna be facing. If you have a particularly hard boss to take down, please believe Draco is going to annihilate them in spectacular fashion. So definitely, she is the most #1 unit that you're going to want to need, bar none. You get yourself a Draco. She's literally one of the best service to roll for this year, outside of waifu reasons. Hey, if you like yourself a certain saber face like Ash the Savior, go for it. She is very pretty, very gorgeous. If you say, hey, Berserker Caster Artoria does more damage, why am I going over there? Let's talk about that. Berserker Caster Artoria is the other unit that most people are saying is going to be the most worth it unit of this year. On top of her being a saber face, she looks very gorgeous. All the very much pretty outfits. She looks very nice, has a very strong Noble Phantasm. She is a quick double arch double buster unit, and she is also a single target arch damage dealer. So most people are saying that she is actually better in more instances. For example, she gives herself anti-purge defense for 1 attack and 1 turn. She deals damage to 1 enemy. If they are a threat to humanity enemies, they deal even more. And on top of that, if they're chaotic and divine, it does even more damage against them, which increases the wide range of those other classes. Her being a berserker, she does more neutral damage to everything because she's a berserker, except for foreigner. And she can increase her double phantasm gauge by 50%, which is typical. She can go by additional 20%, increase her overcharge. Also increase her own arch performance, gives herself crit turns, gives herself invincibility. Very standard stuff. Very good stuff. good stuff. Very good stuff. Now, why doesn't this matter? Why is it just like, oh man, why didn't you say Artoria Caster? Why is she not on the list? Because it's a dime a dozen. That is why. I feel like Draco is going to be more worth your money than Artoria Caster unless she is your waifu, unless you just like saber faces. And honestly, at the end of the day, it's up to personal preference. The differences that these two make are very negligible, and when they start to make differences, you are far into the story at this point. Let me ask you, person watching this video, when did you start playing FGO? Did you just start, or have you been playing for a while? If you've been playing for a while, then you have an idea of where things will go. So you already know what is good. You don't need to listen to me, do you? But you're here watching anyway. So I'm gonna say, for me personally, if you want to roll Chaldea Caster, fine. But I truly believe in my heart of hearts that if you're gonna spend any money on this game, which I recommend you don't, as you're going ahead to spend any quartz, it's gonna be on Draco. You're gonna get the most value out of her. She's going to last you a lot longer. She's going to get you through most of the content that has a singular boss at the end of it. And even neutral, she just does a lot of damage on her own, which is insane. Her normal attacks can do a lot of damage to everything. So why not? Why not use her? And why not take some of the strongest of the classes, the beast class, out for a spin? So that's gonna be the video here, guys. Thank you so much for watching. I really hope you got some information out of this. And if you're new to the channel, I am moving away from FGO primarily. I am talking about other games as well, but here and there you will see FGO video from me. So if you want to know more, I have some older stuff that you can check out, and maybe look out some of the newer stuff I might bring out. But as always, thank you so much to our top supporters. If you too want to be a top supporter, see your name at the end of the video like this, just go ahead and support us over on Patreon, and also support us over on Discord. If you support us in those two places, you will find your name joining these lovely people here. Until next time, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Musaki from the Chaldea Gurus, and from everyone on the team, Happy New Year. See ya.